Thank you, Professor Wiseman. Obviously, 10 minutes is very, very short, so I just thought I would share with you that, as you know, there is an all-party committee that is traveling around the country and asking Canadians what they think of electoral reform. You'll be happy to know that Professor Wiseman and Professor Russell have both appeared before the committee, and I would certainly encourage you to actually read the transcripts of that committee, because you'll obviously get a much better sense as to what their priorities are. Now, last but certainly not least, Professor Russell. Professor Russell, as most of you are aware, is a writer and professor emeritus of political science at the University of Toronto, where he taught from 1958 to 1997. He was the principal of Innis College at the University of Toronto from 1973 to 1978. He is the author of several books, including Two Cheers for Minority Government, The Evolution of Canadian Parliamentary Democracy, Constitutional Odyssey, Can Canadians Become a Sovereign People, and Recognizing Aboriginal Title. Professor Russell is an alumnus of the University of Toronto Schools, Trinity College and the University of Toronto, and Oxford University, where he studied as a Rhodes Scholar. Professor Russell was the 2012 winner of the American Political Science Association's Mildred A. Schwartz Award. Professor Russell was Director of Research for the Macdonald Commission on the RCMP, a member of the Federal Task Force on Comprehensive Land Claims, President of the Canadian Political Science Association, and Chair of the Research Advisory Committee for the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples. Professor Russell, you have 10 minutes, sir.
Ali, I don't need it. I really came here to hear you, but now I realize you're the 3%. We all should be out talking to the 97% who don't give a damn about this issue. But I do want to hear what's on your mind, and what's on my mind is being there for a while. It's a yearning I've had for what I think is obvious, and I hope someone will tell me why it's not obvious. And that is, when you have an election and you create a parliament, the results should reflect the political preferences of the people as closely as possible. I don't like words like proportional and so on. That sounds very technical. But if 40% to wear socks and 30%, those people should be represented according to their strength in the country. I don't see why it should be any other way. Please tell me why. Please tell me why. And first past the post doesn't deliver a parliament that reflects the will of the people. I think that is dreadful, and there's no perfect system of elections, but by God, there's an imperfect system. I don't know if it can be perfectly imperfect, but first past the post stinks, and I've thought that for a long time. Now, when I talk to my friends, I live in Rosedale, and in Rosedale, most people aren't interested in this issue. Not in my building. I'm in a apartment building. But when I can strike up any conversation, and I put we have had people, my wife's over there, in for dinner to and we only invite liberals and conservatives, because if you're NDP or you're Green, I'm Green, you're sold on the system. So we try to burrow away with the liberals and conservatives in South Rosedale. And they're very nice at dinner, they enjoy the wine and so on, and they agree with me we should have a system that represents the will of the people. But they said, well, they produce a majority. Will there be a majority? Well, God, we got to have a majority. And actually there's a poll came out last week from Forum Research that said, if any system is associated with guaranteeing a majority, it will win. Now, that's really why I wrote 2 cheers for minority government. And I see someone looking for a pen right to turtle down, because I hope it destroys this myth that to get things done, to have good government, to have good policy, you got to have one party in the parliament with a majority, even if they only won 40% of the popular vote. That's a silly idea, because if you just look at the evidence in our own country, both provinces and federal government, when we've had no government, no party with a majority, we've had pretty successful parliaments. There's a couple of exceptions, but there's been some terrible majority governments as well as some unfortunate minority ones. And if you look around the world, the parliamentary world, you look for a one-party majority government outside of the United Kingdom, and you look in vain. One-party majority government are there. And why is that? Well, because no political party these days is very popular. 40% is top. That's the gold standard. That's as good as it gets. And if that's the situation, you don't want one party getting, by the distortion of first past the post, a majority in the House of Commons. Because they will have all the power. And we have seen on occasion these false majority governments. I remember Mr. Creation, when he got 41%, now he went over the 40%, he said, "I've got a mandate from the people." Well, Mr. Creation, he had no mandate from the people. 59% of the people don't like your party, they prefer someone else. So my main point to you tonight is you don't have to have a majority government to have good government between the elections. And indeed, there's a very big risk you'll have bad government, because you can have a party with 40% of the vote, but 50% of the seats, it doesn't listen to the other side, who puts through policies that aren't sensitive to other points of view in the country, and you have a very distorted 4 years of policy. And that's bad government. And if you travel around the parliamentary world, as I've had a chance to, people are just amazed in other countries. Why do you Canadians hold on to this? Well, I think that my simple answer is this sounds very rude, most Canadians are liberals or conservatives. And they're doing okay with it. With all due respect, this thing is only going to produce the kind of result that my yearning points to if we get enough liberals and conservatives to see that first past the post really is a lousy system. And I think there's a chance. I think the whole chance right now depends on the parliamentary committee having at least a 3-party consensus. And by that, I mean most likely the Liberals, NDP, and the Green Party. And if they do, I think we can move ahead. The referendum just spooks me out. I agree with what's been said about referendum, but I have been smelling around conservative backyards, and boy, are they are just into this referendum. They're going to make the referendum the whole bloody thing. That's all you're going to hear from the conservatives. You mark my words. They're not really very interested in talking about electoral reform, except we must have a referendum on it. And why is that? Well, they're pretty sure they can win. So that's what we're up against. And I'm still uneasy about what we should do. On just the other 2 points we talked about, I'm glad to hear, and Nelson and Dave aren't in favor, I think I heard them say, compulsory voting. I've lived in Australia off and on, been there for elections. It creates cynicism, among other things. There are so many Australians I met who were turned off politics would just turn out in order to avoid the $50 fine. And what they do is they vote informally. It's a lovely expression. And what they do when they vote informally, they spoil the ballot. You know, they mark it all up, they write rude things on it, but they don't get fined $50. I don't think that's a great day for democracy. I really don't. And I guess like Nelson, maybe not so much like Dave, I'm really worried about this dependence of all of us on the internet, on technology and so on. That little ballot box we go to is, I know it's 19th century, maybe even 18th century, but my God, I love it. And I can just see the whole system coming down, you know, halfway through the election day or all other kinds of stuff. You know, all the techies tell you it'll never happen. It's perfect. You got a perfect system. They told us that in our apartment, and my wife and I came back from Georgia Bay today, and we can't get on the internet. We've got the perfect system. I'm sure that will happen with online voting. So the hell with it.
Thank you, Professor Russell. Now I guess we have 40 minutes left for questions. How do we get it? There was two different mics we actually have here. Could we ask people to actually come up to the mic so everyone can hear what their questions are? Will we go to the right first and then alternate between left and right?
I'd like to propose gender parity. I don't know if that's controversial. Men seem, and there we go, men are usually more comfortable getting up to a mic quicker than women for a variety of cultural reasons. And I propose that if there's a woman in line, she gets priority. We try and do gender parity.
Willowdale parity. Willowdale parity. Yeah. Willowdale parity.
Sure, yeah.
Parity.
Well, I think Willowdale should get priority over everyone.
Yeah.
If you're not from Willowdale, you should sit down. I was
I have a couple of very brief comments and then a question at the end. In the